Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're setting our sights on the horizon. We're diving deep into the future of seafaring in, well, the digital age.
Hmm.
Now, the future, it can sometimes feel like this hazy concept, decades away. But it's worth remembering that the ships set to sail around, say, 2030, they're actually being built right now.
Such a crucial point. And our mission today really is to unpack the huge transformations heading for the maritime industry. We've been
Mm.
looking at industry analyses, tech forecasts,
Yeah?
and really importantly, the human element. What does all this change actually mean for the people who will be working out there at sea?
Exactly. It looks like a future brimming with exciting possibilities, but maybe also some pretty significant challenges for those future seafarers.
For sure.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the vessels themselves, the ships they'll be operating.
Yeah. Okay. So to really get a handle on the speed of change, maybe think about um, early digital cameras
Yeah.
back in the late
Oh,
90s.
yeah, I remember those. Barely a megapixel.
Exactly. Less than a megapixel, tiny storage, those little screens. They feel incredibly basic now compared to, the phone in your pocket.
Completely different world.
But what's fascinating is just how quickly that technology evolved and totally reshaped how we capture and share memories. It happened fast.
Absolutely. And here's where it gets, well, really interesting for shipping. The average age of the world's merchant fleet, it's around 21 years.
21 years. So the typical ship sailing today was built when those early digital cameras were just becoming mainstream.
Wow. So the tech on board is, in digital terms, pretty mature, maybe even old.
You could say that. So if we project forward seafarers in the near future, let's stick with that 2030 time frame, they'll likely be working on vessels with technologies that are as far ahead of today's ships as our smartphones are from those first clunky digital cameras.
That's a huge leap in like less than a decade for some of these ships being built now.
It's a massive leap in a relatively short time. And this kind of rapid disruption, especially in an industry that's traditionally, well, slower moving, it presents both big opportunities and some fundamental shifts in how things get done.
It really does. It almost makes you think of the aviation industry, doesn't it? Well, the way automation progressed there, from needing a flight engineer and a navigator
Right, right.
to today's two-pilot system, where honestly, a lot of the flight is heavily automated.
That's a very apt parallel.
Yeah.
Yeah. We anticipate a whole spectrum of vessel autonomy emerging. Yeah. So on one end, you'll still have crewed ships, but with really advanced automation systems helping out. Then you might see things like remotely monitored coastal vessels, maybe with just small maintenance teams on board.
Okay, and the big question everyone asks, what about, truly autonomous ships? Just
Yeah.
robot ships sailing the oceans.
Well, the term autonomous gets thrown around a lot, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't necessarily mean unmanned,
Mhm.
especially for deep-sea voyages.
Wow.
Well, ships need maintenance. Routine stuff, unexpected repairs. Having a team on board for that is probably going to remain more cost-effective than having a vessel stuck somewhere out of service for ages waiting for a repair crew.
Ah, that makes sense. Practicalities. So maybe it's more like the unmanned machinery spaces we have now, but applied to the bridge instead.
Exactly. You've hit it. We could well see unmanned bridges becoming pretty commonplace on deep-sea ships. You'd have a duty officer on call, ready to respond to alarms or issues.
But not everywhere, presumably.
No, probably not. Think about really high traffic zones like the Singapore Strait or high-risk vessels, cruise ships, for example. A fully manned bridge is likely to remain the standard there, much like, manned machinery spaces are sometimes preferred for critical transits even today.
Interesting. So the actual role of the watch officer, that's going to change significantly.
Oh, precisely. Their tasks will likely shift. It'll probably look more like what dynamic positioning or DP operators do now.
Okay, explain that a bit.
So it's more about closely monitoring sophisticated automated systems, understanding what they're doing, and being ready to intervene effectively when necessary. It requires a different kind of vigilance, more proactive system oversight, less continuous manual control.
Right. Less hand steering, more system managing.
Exactly. And to balance the demands of maintaining these complex ships with smaller crews, we'll almost certainly see a big reduction in admin work. Think automated record keeping.
Fewer paper trails, more digital logs. I imagine that's a plus for everyone involved.
Definitely.
And, there's even talk of seafaring becoming potentially more like a standard 9 to 5 job. How would that work?
Yeah, the rise of remote monitoring and control tech is opening up that possibility. I mean,
Yeah.
there are companies like Seafar already doing this, managing remotely operated, even unmanned vessels from shore-based control centers.
Wow.
So if you connect this to the bigger picture, it really makes you wonder what that traditional seagoing life will look like for future generations.
That is a pretty fundamental shift from, months away at sea. But hang on, with faster port turnarounds, which automation enables, and smaller crews, surely shore leave is going to become even more limited.
That's a crucial point, yeah. If seafarers are spending more time on board with less chance to go ashore, the quality of onboard living conditions, connectivity, recreation, comfort, that becomes absolutely critical.
And the people skills too, right? In a smaller group.
Hugely important. Strong interpersonal skills within that small crew will be vital. And this could really influence who's attracted to the profession, and just as importantly, who stays in it.
So the ships change, the work changes, maybe the type of person changes too.
It's very possible.
Yeah.
Which leads us nicely to think about, who are these future seafarers?
Okay, yeah.
Hmm.
The people themselves, what are we expecting?
Well, we need to think about the generations coming through. You've got Generation Z, born late 90s to mid-2010s. They're digital natives.
Right, grew up with the internet.
But then Generation Alpha, born after that.
Mm.
They're even more immersed. I mean, for them, a world without constant digital tech is almost, well, a foreign concept.
Yeah, it's just how the world is for them.
And what's fascinating is their inherent comfort, their fluency with digital systems. It's second nature.
Right, they've grown up with remote work becoming normal, virtual learning, esports being massive. It's a very different background compared to older generations of seafarers who might have had more, I don't know, hands-on analog experiences growing up.
Exactly. And think about how automation will likely take over many of the dull, dirty, and dangerous tasks at sea.
Like what?
Oh, routine watchkeeping maybe, tank inspections, some maintenance jobs. The nature of the work for those who remain on board will probably become safer, potentially more engaging, more about system oversight, problem solving.
And let's not forget, historically, seafaring has been a really dangerous job.
Extremely. The statistics, if you look at workplace fatality rates compared to shore-based jobs, they're significantly higher at sea.
So the shift towards automation, it genuinely has the potential to make seafaring a much safer career path.
It really does. And something else with the growing need for experienced people in shore-based roles, like in those remote control centers we mentioned.
Yeah.
A career at sea could increasingly become a really valuable stepping stone to good opportunities ashore, which raises an important question, doesn't it? Will we see more fluidity between seagoing and shore-based maritime roles?
So maybe future seafarers won't have to make that stark choice, career at sea or family life ashore. They could potentially do both over a career.
It's a definite possibility, and that would be a huge positive shift.
Okay, let's broaden our view a bit now. How is the whole world of maritime trade itself expected to change? It's not just the ships and crew, is it?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
There are several big geopolitical forces at play. You've got the push for decarbonization, for instance.
Right. Green fuels, efficiency.
Exactly. And also the rise of sort of populism in some areas. Both could lead to a desire for shorter, maybe more regional supply chains that impacts trade routes and the kinds of ships needed.
So maybe less reliance on those incredibly long global supply lines we've gotten used to, shipping things halfway around the world.
Potentially, yes. We might see fewer, but perhaps even larger deep-sea ships for those really long-haul routes that remain. But coupled with that, maybe a resurgence in coastal and short-sea shipping.
Interesting. Are we seeing signs of that already?
We are, actually. Look at the ever-increasing size of the biggest container ships. But also you see steady growth in short-sea shipping volumes, especially in places like Europe. So if you connect that to the bigger picture, the actual geography of trade might be changing.
And what about those Arctic routes, the ones that used to be blocked by ice most of the year?
Ah, yes, climate change. It's undeniably opening up the Arctic. That could potentially make the Northern Sea route along Russia's coast and the Northwest Passage through Canada more viable for trade for more than a year.
But that brings its own challenges, surely.
Oh, absolutely. Huge challenges. Navigation, safety, environmental protection in those incredibly sensitive and extreme environments. It's a whole new ballgame.
Okay, now let's maybe turn to some of the potential bumps in the road. What are the challenges we need to be aware of in this future of seafaring?
Yeah, it's not all smooth sailing, unfortunately. If we draw on aviation's experience with automation again, we can probably anticipate challenges across, say, 5 main categories.
Okay, what are they?
We're looking at human issues, task-related issues, equipment challenges, safety concerns, and then the legal and political side of things.
Right, let's dive into those, starting with the human element. What are the worries there?
Well, one really significant concern is the potential for increased isolation and loneliness, simply due to smaller crews.
Fewer people to interact with.
Exactly. And there have been studies linking reduced crewing numbers on deep-sea ships to, sadly, higher rates of suicide. It's a serious issue.
Yeah, that's really sobering.
And the COVID-19 pandemic really threw a harsh spotlight on the mental health challenges seafarers already face: lack of social contact, limited shore leave. These issues could easily be made worse with even smaller crews. It really raises a big question about how the industry plans to support seafarer well-being in this potentially more isolated environment.
What about the tasks themselves? You mentioned task-related issues.
Yeah. One risk is over-reliance on automation, leading to skill degradation, sometimes called mental underload.
Mental underload.
It's where individuals become kind of slow to react to unexpected events because they're not actively engaged in the hands-on operation anymore. They're monitoring, but maybe not fully present.
Like the system does everything, so you switch off a bit.
Sort of. Aviation has seen incidents where pilots, perhaps distracted, overestimated their ability to quickly take over manual control when an automated system failed or did something unexpected.
And you think that could happen at sea?
It's a definite risk. Seafarers could become less proficient in fundamental navigation or engineering skills if they don't practice them regularly.
So there's a potential for complacency setting in and maybe a loss of those core fundamental skills.
Exactly. There's also the risk of reduced situational awareness, just not having that full picture because you're trusting the system. And overconfidence in automation can definitely impact safety.
And you mentioned earlier, new tech often brings new types of accidents.
Sadly, yes. History shows that. We saw VHF-assisted collisions after VHF radio became common, then radar-assisted collisions after radar. More recently, ECDIS, the electronic chart systems, we've actually seen ECDIS-assisted groundings.
Wow, so the tool designed to prevent grounding sometimes contributes to it.
In certain circumstances, if misused or over-relied upon, yes. So it seems quite likely that the next generation of navigation tech will unfortunately lead to new categories of accidents as we all learn how to interact with and rely on these systems safely.
That's a sobering but really important point. Okay, what about the equipment itself? What are the challenges there?
Well, a big one, especially compared to aviation, is the lack of standardization in maritime equipment.
How you mean?
Seafarers today already deal with a huge array of different systems from countless manufacturers. Every radar, every engine control system, every ECDIS might have a different interface, different operating logic, different maintenance needs, different spare parts. And as the technology gets even more sophisticated, this lack of standardization is only going to become more challenging for training, for maintenance,
Yeah.
even for developing standard safety procedures.
So more complexity, but without the benefit of uniformity that other industries have.
Precisely. And despite all this increasing automation, the need for actual manual maintenance and repair at sea isn't going to vanish.
Right, things still break.
Things still break.
Sure.
And the maintenance itself is going to get more complex, dealing with intricate electronics, software updates, computers, and crucially, cybersecurity.
Ah, cyber. That's a whole other layer.
It really is. And remember, we're talking smaller crews, often more specialized crews. That means less redundancy, fewer people to cover if someone's sick or injured, and fewer hands available to deal with major emergencies.
Which leads us neatly into the broader safety concerns.
Yeah, climate change is one. It's already leading to an escalation in extreme weather events, stronger storm surges, more intense typhoons. That obviously poses increased risks to ships and crews. And thinking about onboard emergencies again, with those smaller crews, the focus might have to shift, maybe more towards protecting the crew themselves, getting them off safely, rather than a prolonged effort to save the vessel. It's genuinely hard to see how very small crews could effectively handle a major fire or flooding incident at sea without significant advancements in automated emergency response systems.
Some really significant safety challenges there. Okay, and finally, you mentioned the legal and political landscape.
Yes, a few key things here. The risk of seafarers being criminalized after maritime accidents. That remains a serious concern. It could easily deter people from choosing a career at sea if they feel unfairly targeted when things go wrong.
Understandable.
Then there's the persistent, frankly awful problem of seafarers' abandonment.
Where crews just get left stranded.
Yeah, owners disappear, wages unpaid, stuck at a foreign port for months or years. Despite international rules like the Maritime Labor Convention, the MLC, it still happens. It impacts thousands of seafarers and their families every year.
And you worry automation might make that worse.
There's a risk that a more automated, less visible industry could exacerbate issues like abandonment, kind of out of sight, out of mind.
That's a frightening thought.
It is. And sadly, we still have ongoing threats like piracy, armed robbery in certain areas, organized crime, Chinese shipping, modern slavery issues, and terrorism threats. These haven't gone away. Plus, the ongoing refugee crisis continues to impact seafarers and maritime trade, with crews often involved in rescues at sea.
A lot of external pressures. What about regulating the autonomous ships themselves?
That's progressing quite slowly at the international level. The IMO, the International Maritime Organization, has started the process, looking at existing regulations and how they apply to mass maritime autonomous surface ships.
But it takes time.
International regulation always takes time, so a comprehensive framework is likely still some way off. In the meantime, you'll probably get a patchwork of different national regulations, which adds complexity. And we also really need to clarify the legal responsibilities and lines of authority. Who's ultimately in charge? The master on board, if there is one, the operator ashore. What happens when things go wrong? Lots of legal knots to untangle.
Definitely a complex web of challenges to navigate. But look, it's not all doom and gloom, is it? We also looked at how training and welfare are expected to evolve, hopefully for the better.
Absolutely, and this is crucial. The need for more advanced technical training is crystal clear. You've got smaller crews needing broader skills, the adoption of alternative fuels, maybe wind-assisted propulsion coming back.
Right.
And just the increasing complexity of all the onboard technology. So we're likely to see a move towards less rigid specialization, maybe more flexibility, and definitely a much stronger emphasis on continuous professional development CPD for seafarers. Lifelong learning, basically.
And I guess the increasing availability of decent high-speed internet at sea is going to be absolutely crucial for that, right?
Completely essential. It unlocks so much. It enables onboard CPD, distance learning, but also provides vital access to shore-based technical support, maybe remote diagnostics when things go wrong.
And are there new training technologies coming in too?
Yes, some really exciting stuff. Think AI, artificial intelligence being used in training, 3D printing for creating training aids, perhaps, and particularly extended reality or XR.
XR. So virtual reality, augmented reality.
Exactly. Augmented reality, for instance, could overlay information onto a seafarer's view while they're doing maintenance, showing steps, highlighting components. AI could assist with fault finding and repairs. So training might shift towards teaching people how to use these powerful tools effectively.
So less focus on memorizing manuals, more on using digital assistance.
Potentially. Those fundamental skills, like basic electronics or manual fault finding, they might still be taught, but maybe more as contingency methods, fallback skills, a bit like how celestial navigation is taught today, just in case the primary systems fail.
Okay. And what about VR?
Virtual reality and advanced simulation will be vital. If roles become more about monitoring complex systems, VR can help bridge the gap in hands-on experience, letting people practice procedures and emergency responses in a safe, realistic environment. We could also see AI-powered adaptive training systems that personalize the learning path for each individual seafarer and assess their competency more effectively. And things like real-time translation technologies could help overcome language barriers within multinational crews.
So training sounds like it could become much more personalized, more accessible, maybe even more integrated into the daily work routine.
Precisely. CPD won't be something you just do every 5 years for certificate renewal. With technology evolving so fast, it'll likely become an ongoing part of the job. Using VR or AR for quick remote training sessions, perhaps, reducing the need to travel to training centers as often.
And presumably it's not just seafarers needing this new training. What about the people ashore in those control centers?
Absolutely. Those shore-based personnel involved in remote monitoring, remote control, maybe even remote pilotage someday, they'll need highly specialized skills too. And getting international agreement on the procedures and training standards for them will be vital for safety.
It really sounds like the traditional STCW convention, the International Rulebook for Training and Certification, might struggle to keep pace with all this change.
That's a fair point. Many in the industry already question if it's fit for purpose for the future. It's a framework that changes quite slowly. We're already seeing a trend, especially among younger generations, towards using apps and even games for learning and skill acquisition.
Learning on your phone or tablet.
Yeah. And some flag states and forward-thinking shipping companies are already taking the initiative, using apps and new platforms to provide more advanced, more flexible, more accessible training beyond the bare minimum required by STCW.
It's definitely encouraging to see that innovation happening in the training and welfare space. Okay, so to try and wrap things up, we've really taken a deep dive today into a future where vessels look set to become increasingly automated.
No.
The roles of seafarers are evolving dramatically, shifting towards tech management and oversight,
Right.
and the actual patterns of global trade might be shifting too, due to decarbonization, geopolitics, and new technologies.
A very dynamic picture.
And we've also explored some pretty significant challenges ahead. Human factors like isolation, skill fade, equipment issues, safety concerns in a changing world, and some complex legal hurdles.
Yeah, plenty to navigate there.
But also some really exciting opportunities, particularly in revolutionizing training and welfare through new technology, making learning more continuous and accessible.
Absolutely. Adapting to all these profound changes. The good and the challenging will be absolutely crucial for the well-being and the effectiveness of the seafarers who will navigate this new maritime landscape.
Well said. And on that note, here's maybe a final thought for you, our listeners, to consider. Given the incredible pace of technological change we've discussed and the unpredictable nature of global events, what unforeseen technologies or world shifts might further reshape the future of seafaring in ways we haven't even touched upon today? Something to ponder.
Do subscribe to our podcast, The Deep Dive, powered by Marine Insight on your favorite platform. We are present on Amazon Music, YouTube Podcast, and Spotify.
If you have any suggestions for future topics, please connect with us on marineinsight.com. Wishing you fair winds and calm seas. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.